book then tumbles down explaining the rules of the card game called Palace to us, followed by Alice using even more metaphors to try and fit this asinine deduction she's trying to force to fit into a random poem in the book. Say it with me, folks. Magical Mary Sue guessing powers. Hello and welcome to Quotation Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of The Looking Glass Illusion by Sara Ella. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Part 3, Square 8, The Queen, Chapter 21. Alice reminds readers of after Charlotte had disappeared the first time and the two of them were reunited after the first trial, about how she clung to the woman she thought was her sister in cred. This is used to contrast how weird the reunion is between Chess and Kit. Despite the fact that this entire time Chess has been desperate to find his brother, now that the two of them are reunited, the only thing that they can do is stare at each other. Honestly, Chess seems more interested in Alice, which really tells the readers which head he's thinking with. Maddie then introduces Aaron to Kit and Alice. Then Alice and Maddie have a reunion of their own, which is obviously way more heartwarming than the Chess Kit one we had a half page earlier, which I think says everything that you need to know, not about the relationship that the brothers have, but also how the author thinks same-sex relationships work, even platonic and family relationships. Then Maddie gets to work bossy as ever, instructing the others like the nine she is. I'm sorry, but I'm still waiting for some sort of explanation as to what each of these numbers are supposed to represent, especially since teams are only 7 out of a possible 13. Maybe this story would have made way more sense if there were 13 people on each team and the rules had been spelt out for us. Instead, they're random and arbitrary and can apparently be switched around at will with zero impact on the trial, seeing as how Alice went from an ace to a queen. Exactly what impact is constantly beating the readers around the head with in what position that they play if the card numbers hold no actual impact on the plot. There's a brief interlude where Snark introduces himself to Alice. The two of them are obviously supposed to know one another. However, despite having had some gaps filled in with her mom's clues, they're mostly memories of her mother's, not actually Alice's. She still doesn't remember stuff like her own childhood friends. Alice goes over to Nave, who is also there but hasn't been mentioned. I'm mainly chalking this up to the fact that it was Chess who was narrating the last chapter. And as I said a moment earlier, men have two heads but the ability to think with only one at a time, so the others are there but as unimportant as usual. Nave and Alice are both like, so that we're on the same page, the reunion between Chess and Kit was weird, right? They both agree that it's odd, but maybe that they're simply so shocked that they don't know what to do. Allison brings up how weirdly antagonizing that Nave has been towards Chess during the earlier trials. Nave sits down and mentions something about their missing memories from the trial last year, that it's mostly Chess's story to tell, not his. This surprises Alice immensely, so she'd been expecting her cousin to throw Chess under the proverbial bus. He says some stuff about caring for the team, but what's more is that he feels as though Chess is more focused on other goals rather than the trials, which, considering the way that Chess acted at the end of the last chapter and the start of this chapter, yep, that checks out. Two heads, man. Alice has no idea what to make of any of this, probably because that would also mean that she would take her head out of her rear end. But she's also randomly of the opinion that she's emotionally pushed away first Chess and now Nave, which is the first that I'm learning about this, but whatever. So she goes over to where Willow and Sophia are by the campfire. There she watches as Willow makes them something to eat. Chapter 22. As they walk through the woods, Chess warns Kit not to stray from the others, that there might be more snake vines waiting to strike. However, Kit apparently has a lot of anger and resentment over what he claims is his brother seemingly abandoning him a year earlier, that Chess wasn't even the one who found him. Although I would like to add that it's not like Alice found him either. In fact, it's kind of the exact opposite. Kit also wasn't in a bad situation like Snark was in. Kit had been chilling in the Wabe for the past year, so I seriously don't know what Kit is going on about. Chess goes over to where Alice is sitting by the campfire. He feels like he should go over and clear the air to confess how he'd been moved into a position to manipulate her for the goal of the quarter leaders, but that would require some deep introspection, and we can't have that, apparently. Instead, he sits across the fire from her. He turns to Nave and asks why the other boy couldn't have simply told Alice about how they'd been on a different team last year. In response, Nave turns to Kit, seemingly the last moment Chess saw his brother a year ago. He starts crying and begging Chess to save him. The actual Nave shows back up a second later, and Chess asks what Nave remembers from the final trial last year. However, Nave is of the opinion that so long as they now know that Kit is fine, none of what happened really matters, which I think is awfully bold considering that they continue to be eyeballs deep in the same trial. Nave calls Alice A, which Chess gets jealous over the nickname. It's barely a nickname, though. It's literally a letter. But then Nave explains to Chess his relationship to Alice, although Chess is more befuddled to realize that Nave is a prince more than anything. Again, Chess asks what Nave remembers from the final trial last year. Nave's memories are like Chess's right now, and they're mostly missing. He says that he remembers an immense fire, and when he came out of it with burns on his body that have yet to fully heal. He goes on to say that Kit had fallen behind, and Nave had to drag Chess out. Nave then says that Chess should get some sleep while he stands watch. Chapter 23. The chapter opens with Alice having a nightmare. Thank you, next. This says nothing but wastes nearly an entire page. When she wakes herself up from her nightmare, she looks around at the sleeping Shire brothers for a moment before she brings the almanac out. She then proceeds to go over the clues that Charlotte had left behind. The narration reminds us of some of them, but provides no further context clues or literally any indication that Alice has figured out what her auntie meant by any of it. After a moment, she looks around again and then wishes for light. She eventually turns her Wonder Vision on to use the glow from it as a booklight, and then proceeds to read until the sun starts to come up and the others wake up. If you're interested in what she's learned, me too. The narration only says that she read, but not about what. It's only when Sophia comes over to her that Ella shows her part of a poem. Sophia is of the opinion that the poem is nonsensical, but Ella seems to think that it's the answer to what they've been searching for. All this time they've been trying to get out of the trial, but now Alice thinks that they're looking for a door into Wonderland, and she has a key. Chapter 24. When everybody wakes up the next morning, Alice basically sits them down and lays all the cards on the table, as it were. She tells them everything that's been going on, and I mean everything, about Nave's true identity, and about who Charlotte actually is, and about the clues her mom left behind for her. When she gets to the part about the Scarlet Charlotte BS, she turns and asks Chess what he thinks about Dina's betrayal. Judging by the way Kit responds about his brother and grandmother, the relationship between Chess and Dina was something completely different. If this book had actual depths, I could predict that some grooming and emotional abuse on Dina's part, but alas, the idea probably never occurred to the author, so here we are. Alice goes on to explain that she was so focused on reading through the hidden notes Charlotte had left behind for her that she forgot to see the book for what it was. She says that she thinks that the book was written by the Ivory King, and that each game, each little story, is interconnected in its own way. She believes that it's a map to direct people to the true Wonderland. The book then tumbles down explaining the rules of the card game called Palace to us, followed by Alice using even more metaphors to try and fit this asinine deduction she's trying to force to fit into a random poem in the book. Say it with me, folks. Magical Mary Sue guessing powers. I'm not even going to pretend like I understand a lick of this. It's confusing, almost intentionally poorly written, like the author is hoping that we'll be so befuddled that we'll somehow mistake this hot mess for good writing. But the gist of it is that the next game that they have to play involves them separating into smaller groups the further forward that they go. They argue for a bit about who's going to be staying behind and eventually reach an agreement. We bid our goodbyes, and I watch as Nave gives Ace a brief hug. If he hadn't explained how they're related, I might not be handling it so well. Please do not tell Chess about how members of the royal family often married their cousins, to keep the bloodline pure. Also, why does Nave have more chemistry with Alice than the actual love interest? The group then says their goodbyes and breaks off. Thanks for listening to my Book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main Book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same thing as Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more Book Snarks starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash tales on my stories, so if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!